Okay, then I'm predicting the New Orleans Saints record. So looking at their roster, the Saints roster definitely doesn't look great to me. They're filled with a lot of old players. Obviously on offense, Derek Carr, Alvin Kamara, Chris Olave, those guys are good. I'm slightly worried about their offensive line. It wasn't the best last year. I think it's still serviceable with like Ryan Ramczyk. But I am slightly worried about that. But on defense, they have a couple of superstars or stars like Tyrann Mathieu, Lattimore, um, Cameron Jordan, Demario Davis. But other than that, they're like gap players. Their depth players really scare me. If any of their older veteran star players get injured, like they could be bad this year, especially with Dennis Allen as their head coach. But I'm not predicting injuries. But you have your first game versus the Carolina Panthers. Carolina Panthers, to me, they're just not ready to face a veteran team like the Saints. So I think the Saints defense can cause massive problems for Bryce Young and that brand new Carolina Panther offense. So I'm going to take the Saints here. You have them versus the Cowboys. I think this one could be an interesting game, but the Cowboys are like to me, a more talented version of the Saints. They didn't really improve this offseason, but the Cowboys are just more talented. They have home field advantage. They have a more explosive offense. I'm going to take the Cowboys here. Then week three versus the Eagles. I think Eagles actually did something in free agency. I think this one could be a tight game. That Saints defense isn't bad, and I think Jalen Hurts he can get slowed down by good defenses. But I think there will be improvement on that Eagles defense, and Derek Carr struggles usually early on before the. So I'm going to take the Eagles here. And you have them versus the Falcons. These two teams they play each other real tough. Falcons, I think nowadays they have the better team. Falcons, their defense wasn't bad last year, and I expect improvement from their defense and their offense have enough talent, especially especially with the new head coach. The Falcons should be good, and these guys usually split, so I'm taking the Falcons here. Then you have Week Five versus the Chiefs. Definitely the Chiefs could definitely be upset here by the Saints. I think the Saints have a good enough defense to slow down that Chiefs offense, which isn't super talented. But it's Patrick Mahomes. He usually wins these tight games, especially on prime time. I'm taking the Chiefs here. Then week six versus the Buccaneers, who's coming off a mini bye. These two teams also play each other. These two teams are rival. I think the Bucks and their high flying offense will take advantage. Will be better. I'm gonna take the Bucks offense over the Saints defense. So I'm gonna take the Bucks here. And you have them versus the Broncos on a Thursday night. It's just too much of a home field advantage at the Superdome on Thursday night football. The Saints defense I think can cause problems. Dennis Allen is a good like defensive like coordinator and good at coaching defense, but his offense sucks. But Broncos, their offense is ass, so I'm gonna take the Saints here. Then week eight versus the Chargers. This one I think could be a close game. I'm not a huge fan of the Chargers this year, but the Chargers do have a big ass home field advantage. Jim Harbaugh is an experienced coach, and just because of that, I think he can unlock that Chargers offense by mid-season. So I'm taking the Chargers here, upsetting the Saints. Then week nine versus the Panthers. Like I said earlier, I still don't think the Panthers are ready to face the Saints yet. So I'm taking the Saints here. Then week 10 versus the Falcons. Pretty much what I said earlier. I think the Falcons and Saints will split this year, so I'm taking the Saints. Then week 11 versus the Browns. Browns are coming off a bye. Their Browns defense does not travel very well, but the Browns have like abundance of talent. I think the Browns offense can match up versus that Saints defense, and that Browns defense I think we'll do good enough. The Saints offense really isn't that good, so I'm taking the Browns here. Then you have them versus the Rams. Saints are coming off a bye. I just like the Rams a lot this year. I think the Rams' young offense late in the season will do well versus that Saints defense, and the Saints offense will just not carry them. I'm taking the Rams here. Then you have them versus the Giants. This one is an interesting. Giants are coming off a mini bye with home field advantage. The Giants defense I think is good, but I'm not sure if they're good enough to stop an okay Saints offense. And that Giants offense to me is ass, and I think the Saints have a better, more well-rounded team. Even on the road, I'm taking the Saints here. Then you have Week 15 versus the Commanders. This one definitely an upset game for the Saints. Um, Commanders can definitely the offense can definitely explode. Like I think Commanders have the offense to eventually explode, but not against like a veteran team like the Saints here, especially at home field. I'm thinking the Saints here. Week 16 versus the Packers. This one is a upset watch for the Packers. Derek Carr, like I said, he usually goes on fire near the end of the season, but it's a prime time. It's gonna be really cold in Green Bay. And I think Green Bay is just more suited to play, so I'm going to take the Packers here. In week 17 versus the Raiders, I think these two teams, in terms of their talent level, is kind of similar. The Raiders have a great defense, but their offense is ass. While the Saints, I think they're more well-rounded. I gotta take the Saints here, especially with home field advantage. In week 18 versus the Bucks, I do believe that the Saints and Bucks will split, so I'm taking the Saints here. So ending at the Saints going 8-9, 4-2 in the division, 5-4 at home, and 3-5 away.